Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to the Podcast Daily. I'm Jeremy Birmingham. That's Ryan Day. We're going to talk a little bit about signing day because we had an hour-long press conference with you on Wednesday, and nobody asked about recruiting except for me. Obviously, the majority of the work is done heading into the February signing period, which is stupid now, and I don't know why we do it. But you add Dominic Kirks, a four-star local kid, an Ohio kid that it seemed like was grinding for a long time to get that opportunity, and he does. He signs on Wednesday. But I want to go back to the Jeremiah Smith. When you got the news in December, you still weren't allowed to talk about it officially on the December press conference because he had not signed yet. Had you ever experienced in the time of being the head coach here an hour like you did with Jeremiah and with Edric Houston? And can you just maybe explain to people how frustrating it is to have to deal with that because you've done a year's worth of work,
right?
And then it comes down to 3 minutes before a decision?
Well, you just hope that in that moment, nothing irrational happens because of all the work that's been done to this point. You just count on the relationships and the work that's been put in up until this point to pay off down the road. But when you're dealing with such, high-end players, there's a lot of things that could go down. Yeah. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot that goes with it. And so, yeah, there was certainly some unsettling moments there. But again, when you're dealing with, guys like Jeremiah Smith and Edric Houston, there's a lot of pressure back home for these guys to stay closer to home. And so we understand that. But it is a challenge. And I think going back to your first point about the signing days, I think there's been kind of talk about maybe moving some of these signing days because how hectic December can be. And so I'm certainly one of the proponents that we should take the signing day and move it back to some other date other than December.
I've always thought it should be August 1st and February 1st. And then if there's a head coaching change like we saw in a number of places, then maybe you open it up for guys. Sure. But like August 1st, there's a lot of guys, Garrett Stovers of the world, who they're not going anywhere else. So why shouldn't they be able to just get that knocked out? But because there are so many things changing in college sports and college football, the Jeremiah recruitment to me is just fascinating because it's a microcosm of how you can do everything right. I mean, you guys have been recruiting Jeremiah Smith for 4 years. He came here as a freshman, camped in the summer of 2020 or 2019, I think. Like Heartline never left. The relationship there, the offense is great. The wide receiver development's great. The relationships are perfect. You are involved in every single thing that you could want.
Yep.
To be like, this is the easy recruitment. And it still came down to the last minute where everything changed. And then last week we see Jeff Hafley leave for the Green Bay Packers to be a defense coordinator. And it leaked out through Pete Thamel that one of the reasons maybe was that like being a college football head coach isn't what it used to be. And I think about the Jeremiah Smith recruitment and then that conversation with Jeff. And is this fun still? Because you get into coaching because you love coaching and you love developing young people and the opportunity to mentor people and help them achieve great things. But it does seem like the game has lost part of what made it fun.
I would say it's much different than when I think I'm 44 years old. When I first started getting into coaching, why you get into coaching has completely changed. What you love doing on a day-to-day basis. But you also just have to adapt with the times. And I think the easy thing to do is throw up your hands and just say, well, I'm out. Well, that's easy to say. Yeah. And I just, there's just so many things here that we're working towards right now. And finding solutions is the key to it. And it's always going to change. I think about back when I first started playing, it was two back and, guys were huddling. And then all of a sudden went to the no huddling, went to the spread. And that was a game changer. And then, teams started catching up with that. And then there was just different things along the way that's changed the course of college football. And I think back when there used to be the option and then, all these different things. And so the game is going to continue to change. Now, we're certainly in unprecedented time because of all the things that are going on. But you have to figure out a plan for moving forward. And I think about the job of Ohio State. It's important to know the tradition here and what's come before because there's so many great players and great teams and obviously great coaches that have come before. And there's going to be a lot more that come afterwards. And it's our job as the guys who are part of the program now, the players, the staff, the coaches, certainly myself, to continue that tradition, knowing that there was something that came before, and there's going to be something that comes ahead. Yeah. And what we can't do is look back on this time and say, well, it was a frustrating time and we don't have solutions. We have to come up with the answers and the solutions. And so, I think that, after the season, you come up for air and you figure out what needs to get addressed and you do that. But recruiting in December was crazy. I mean, that's probably the most chaotic time I've ever been a part of, coming off the last game, getting ready for the bowl game and everything that came with that.
And that was really ultimately like 3 players, 4 players that were like chaos time, right? If we go back to the summer, and the Aaron Scott recruitment, I think, is one that people would be interested in hearing about because there was so much back and forth between your program and Michigan's program. And Aaron and his family, Aaron loves Ohio State, grew up loving Ohio State, dad full of Ohio State love. And that back and forth, you were more involved in the Aaron Scott recruitment than most people probably recognize from the outside. What was it about that specific fight that maybe felt different, or why do you think that one was so back and forth to the wire? And ultimately, what do you think sealed the deal with Aaron, and why was he like that important?
Yeah, that was a battle. And, anytime we're battling for recruits in the state of Ohio, those are important battles. And I think Tim's done a great job of building relationships, but I think between the two of us, working together on this thing, it really made a difference. But ultimately, it came down to Aaron feeling comfortable with everybody in the building and the parents feeling, comfortable. And it comes down to relationships. And that ultimately, that's what recruiting's all about.
Still.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, even all the things that come with it. And certainly, does NIL play? All those things play. But it comes down to relationships in the end, and the belief that when, a mom and a dad send their son to Ohio State, are, the people in that building going to take care of my son, in a lot of different areas now. And it's certainly different than it used to be, but it still comes down to that. It comes down to relationships. I think, Aaron and his family felt comfortable here coming off the June visit that, everything we said we're going to do in recruiting, we're going to follow through with. And he's doing great now. He's out there working, and he's already put some weight on, and he looks good.
Necessary. Do you think, Tim Walton, the job he's done, especially has come into view in the last month, but we can't talk about those guys necessarily, but we can talk about in a staff full of elite coaches and recruiters, there's 2 guys that keep standing out, and that's Brian Hartline and Tim Walton. 2 guys who played at Ohio State, 2 guys who have extensive NFL backgrounds, different ways, Brian as a player and Tim as a coach. Do you think more and more that that's the recipe that it takes to win in recruiting? Because someone has to understand, as you said, you got to understand the traditions of Ohio State. You have to know this place inside and out. Do you think that matters more than it did 10 years ago?
I think it's always good to have guys who understand what it means to be, whether it's a player, a coach, a staff member. I just think it means a little more. But when I look at Tim, I look at a guy who put 12 years, I think it's 12 years in the NFL. Yeah. He's been at LSU, he's been at Miami. This is an experienced coach who, has put his work in to get to this point where I think he's the best DB coach in the country. Otherwise, he wouldn't be here. The fact that he's a Buckeye is even a bonus. But I think that when guys see his track record and what he's done, ultimately, that's what it comes down to. It comes down to your competence as a coach. And anytime you're trying to build trust, that's a big part of it. And I think guys believe that he's a really good coach. He's going to help them get to where they need to be. All you do is just look at the impact we've made in the last couple of years in the secondary and some of the, the play we're getting now as opposed to a couple of years ago. And now hopefully we take the next step this year. But also it's just about the relationships. And I think that's, again, what he does a great job is connecting.
Yeah.
So I think we're always looking at, we call it the 3 C's to earn trust. One is your character, who you are as a person. Tim's a great person. The connection, do you spend time connecting with people, which he does a great job of? And then the competencies, do you actually know what you're talking about? And so I think those are the most important things. It certainly helps when you're a Buckeye. And, I feel like I've brought in, as many as I can, Gene Hart, CJ Barnett, and Tim Walton, James Laurinaitis, so I really like having those guys around. But ultimately, you still have to be able to do your job, and you have to have the competency to do the job.
I know we're bouncing around a little bit, but I'd be remiss if I didn't at least ask about the chaos in the week leading up to Caleb deciding to come to Ohio State. How insane was that last 48 hours when he went into the transfer portal officially? I mean, and we live in such a weird world now. Like everyone, there's that green light, right? Nick Saban retires, and everyone's like, "Okay, here we go," and you're all at the starting line waiting for the green light, and then it's go. When you guys get the notification that he's in the portal, how quick is a trip scheduled to Georgia. How crazy was that? Not the last even 24 hours, but the last 6 hours from we think he's going to Georgia to he's putting an announcement on Twitter he's coming to Ohio State.
Yeah, we knew he had to move quick, and certainly we saw his coach went to Georgia, so that was playing into it. But myself, Tim, Jim, and Matt Guerrero all got on a plane and said we're going to be down there in the morning. I think it was like a 9 o'clock meeting at the house, and man, I think it went for about 4 hours. And I mean, Jim Knowles will tell you it was like an interview. Caleb was interviewing our staff, and I talked to him for a while, but ultimately it came down to watching our film and going through it and figuring out, how do you call this? What do you do here? Making sure that Tim, Matt, and Jim were all on the same page. We're dealing with Caleb, his dad, Gary. I mean, a great family, but they're football people, and, they want to make sure everything's squared away. And I think the thing, you'd have to ask him, but I think a couple of things. One, we recruited him the year before, and we talked about where we think the defense was going and what it was going to look like. You saw that progress. Yeah. So what we said was going to happen was happening, and we expect to take the next step this year. So I think that gave us some credibility there. But I also think he really liked the guys on the team, and Jordan Hancock and some of the Malik Harford and the guys who were already on the defense, Sonny Styles. Yeah. He had a previous relationship there, so there's some comfort level there. And then also Tim, is somebody that knew Gary growing up, and so there was a relationship there as well. So I think all those things combined, I think, led him to coming here. And that was a crazy 24 hours.
I mean, that year from finishing what everyone expected as runner-up to Nick Saban, it happens.
You never know.
And then a year later to get that call had to be crazy. You have a radio show that you have to do, so I want to try to speed this up. When was the last time you and Nina went on a date?
Oh, boy.
And where did you go?
You're going to get me in trouble. Last time I went on a date. In the off season, we try to do some different things together. I'll tell you, we got away. It was after the season. It was in December. We had a couple days off. I think it was right around Christmas or something. Her and I got away for a night. It was one night, and then we were back the next morning.
So you need sometimes.
So we did. We it's probably about a month ago. But we try. We really do. Once the off season hits, we try to at least once a month. Do something. It's certainly impossible during the season, as recruiting, and we finally got done being on the road and everything. So we'll try to find ways to connect that way. We like to do more things as a family, just because, again, like how many times we actually together as a family doing things. We are going to go on the Buckeye cruise with the family again. This will be our second year doing that, and the kids and Nina really enjoyed that last time. So we're going to do that again. So that'll be a week together as a family, which is good. So we try to find as many times as we can to do things as a family, but Nina and I will try to do that probably once a month.
College football, it seems like we're heading toward a world of transfers whenever you want, unlimited transfers, and a world where NIL, which has had no guardrails, may now finally have them. What's going to be worse for college football? NIL with guardrails? Because a lot of people blame NIL for the decay of college football. I personally think it's the transfer portal that's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
And if you now open that up even more, is that a much bigger issue to you than NIL?
I think what's going on now between the Big Ten and the SEC coming together is the best thing that can happen, because I think we need to figure out, how we want to move forward. And I think once we get the governance in place and we can actually enforce things, to me, that's the most important thing. Because right now, I think, we're struggling to enforce rules. And we can pass whatever laws we want in terms of NIL or the portal and all these things, but if we don't have the ability to enforce rules, that's when, to me, there's all kinds of problems.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier when rules are set and rules are enforced, and then there's consequences for breaking the rules. I think we're all having a hard time not only recognizing what exactly some of the rules are, but also if someone breaks them, how do we actually enforce those?
Yeah.
And it creates a lot of hard feelings across the country.
What is something about Ryan, like you wear Air Maxes a lot at practice, but I think that's probably because they're team issued a lot of times.
Probably.
Like, what is something that people don't know that you are into? Like, I'm 45, we're basically the same age. Like, I was pretty poor growing up. I couldn't afford nice shoes, right? So as I've gotten older, I like to make sure I have nice shoes. Is there something that you are into? French wine, whatever. What do people like? What would they be surprised to know you're into? Do you sit around at home and play Diablo 4 at midnight? Like, what do you do?
No.
When was the last time you played a video game?
Midnight. Video games?
Yeah. When was the last time you played one?
I played against my son in Madden the other day, and he got me because he knows how to play the game better than I do.
Yeah.
Not because of the defense he called, but I mean, some stuff I could probably tell you, but it wouldn't be appropriate for this.
That's what we want. We can bleep shit.
We'll save that for another
We
day.
can bleep shit out, Ryan. See, I can do that. We can do whatever we want.
No, we love to travel. I love traveling. Nina likes traveling. We like to go see different parts of the world. You know, we've been out to Jackson Hole. We've been out to, Park City, Utah. We've been out to Big Sky, Montana.
Is Wyoming the most overrated state in the country?
No, that's not.
All
no
right.
way.
I'm just trying to take a shot at Austin. The opportunity to do a show where Austin's not on it to snap back is something I have to take.
But my wife's, her dad came over to Greece when he was 9, and so she still has family in Greece. So we like to travel. We don't have a lot of time to travel, obviously, but it's something we like to do. I don't know if that's very exciting fact.
I mean, it's exciting. I mean, people. I again, like I was a kid. I'm 9th of 11 kids. My parents couldn't afford Jordans. You know what I mean? So as I've gotten older, my wife's like, "Do you really need to spend $400 on a pair of shoes?" I'm like, "I don't need to,
right?
But I want to, and I'm going to,
right?"
And that's sometimes you just need that.
Yeah.
RJ got his first offer. I don't know if you're allowed to talk about him as a.
Yeah.
How does that rule work? So you can talk about him as a person, not as as a player. But do you remind him that he got that offer because you're his dad, and how much further along you were as a high school quarterback than he is heading into his sophomore year?
Yeah, I think when he got the Boston College offer from Jeff,
so that went off the table now.
Yeah, well, so it's so funny. So first thing he did to call was like, "Do I still have that offer or not?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "I don't know, buddy," But I think when he got the Marshall offer, he really felt great because I don't really know many folks at Marshall. Yeah. So, that he earned that one on his own, and to get that offer after the season, he felt great about that. So, he'll probably go, visit there, and I'll probably go as a dad and go, check it out. But I didn't have any offers as a freshman for sure. I didn't play varsity as a freshman. I mean, he's much further along than I am. He's obsessed with it. He loves it. And he's got a great feel for the game. He loves it. It's his whole life. He's obsessed with it. So it's fun as a dad. And one of the things I try not to do is tell him, too much about how to throw or what to do. He's got to do it on his own. Remember hearing Dale Earnhardt Jr. talk about how his dad had the cheat code, and that sometimes he gave it to him, sometimes he didn't. And I think I try not to give him the cheat code all the time and let him figure it out on his own. Heading
into spring, if I don't ask at least one football question, the YouTube commenters will be pissed. What's your biggest concern? This looks like a national championship roster that is built, right? It's sitting here. Heading into spring, I think a lot of people outside looking in are worried about right tackle or maybe the continuity on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. From what you've seen in the last month, where is your concern level? And are you confident that the starting right tackle is on this roster?
I think you got to take a look at how last year can improve. Guys improve as they get a year of experience under their belt. You look at guys who play in the NFL, they're not all just 4 and 5 stars. Yeah. Usually they're guys who learn to play the position. Their experience allows them the opportunity to grow. I think this spring is going to be critical. To your point about the roster, it's probably going to be the most competitive spring that I've been a part of. Just when you start going through every position, the type of guys we have, it's going to be amazing, and I think there's a lot of excitement around it. Spring game is going to be a blast. That's on August 13th, and
April 13th.
Or April 13th.
Tickets on sale Friday morning at 10 a.m.
Yeah, April 13th. And we get a good crowd. To get a good day, it's going to be an amazing crowd. But I think there's so many guys that people want to see. But going back to your question about the offensive line, there's a lot of talent in that room. There is. There's some good young guys that have come on. But I think we got to come out of the spring and see where we're at. And the good news is we'll have a good feeling because, we're going to go against some really good guys every day in practice. So, but I'm with you. That's a position that if we're going to make this run and we're going to get done, we need to get done. It's going to go through the offense and defensive line.
You have the 3rd ranked recruiting class in the class of 2024 that is now official and complete. Is there a story in there or one guy that you almost can't believe is here?
Well, I know you don't look at it that way, but probably it would be Julian saying.
Yeah.
I look at it like.
I mean, we're looking at it that way for sure.
Right. Just the way that all played out was just you could never predict that in a million years, and then you look at it.
How hard is that for you? Because I know internally, like that's not who you.
I went back and forth and back and forth and back. I actually talked to you at one point. I was like, man, I just, when you recruit people, you bring them in and you talk to them, and then you go through it, and there's a human side of it. Like, okay, we're not bringing in 2 quarterbacks in this class. And then this situation presents itself, and then you almost have to take yourself away and say, what's best for the team? What's best for Ohio State football? And like, one thing I can tell you is this job is not for the faint of heart, whether it's dealing with staff, whether it's dealing with players. But the one thing I try to do is make sure I'm transparent and tell everybody, all those quarterbacks and everybody exactly what's going on. And this is the decision that's been made. Here's why. Because the only thing you can really, guarantee is that there's going to be competition. There's going to be a bunch of guys in that room. When you look back since 2017, that's been the case. When you list all the different quarterbacks.
Because there's no different than what you told Aaron Nolan last April, which is we're going to have the best quarterbacks in the country. It's just the conversation moved up 6 months, right?
Yeah, and it's a very unique situation. Right? I don't know if it's once in a lifetime, but it's a very unique situation, and this presented itself, and I felt like it was the right thing to do at that time for the program, and I'm excited we did. I think Julian's doing a great job. His family feels comfortable with what's going on, and I think it's going to make everybody in that room better.
Last thing, and we'll let you get to your radio show. You've been in Ohio now 8 years.
Yeah,
your children have grown up here,
right.
Like. They don't know anything other than Columbus and being Buckeyes.
Yeah.
Does it still bother you? Maybe bother's not the right word, but just do you think people understand or appreciate how ingrained you are into this culture now, or Columbus and Ohio? And is that hard for you when people still look at you and say, "Oh, he's an outsider"?
Yeah, I think early on, especially, that probably was more the narrative. But like you said, like my youngest daughter, it's all she knows. And so, my family lives this more than anybody in the state of Ohio.
Yeah.
So I know people have grown up this way, but we live it every single second of our day. We have to, this has become our 8 years. It's like, I know.
Like your kids people talk to your kids about a loss at Ohio State, and that's awful.
You see blue and you get physically ill. Like it's just, that's what our life has become for the last 8 years. And so yeah, I mean, like this is who we are. And I, certainly when you have 12 million people in a fan base, there's a lot of things that are said, but I really appreciate all the support that so many people across the state have given my family and I, even though, we've won a whole bunch of games. We've also lost some games too. And, we know what we need to get done next year. It's important to get it done. But overall, the people have been unbelievable. They really have. And, they've been supportive of the family and been supportive, my kids. Not everybody, and we have to live that every day.
My family doesn't like me.
Yeah.
So
it's part of
your family. At least if your family likes you, at least you're on the right side. My family's like, does this guy ever stop? But
but no,
I don't though.
Yeah, but it's part of the job, and my family's embraced it, and they understand what it is more than anybody, I would say.
Well, right on time. He's got to get to a radio show. We got to wrap up this edition of the Podcast Daily. That's Ryan Day. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you in spring football.